Welcome in to Greenville Grit, Greenville residents in touch on 103.7 WTIB. This is the local show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Ribeyes, Kid Construction, and Greenville Toyota. Now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Welcome to the Greenville Grit. I'm Michael Overton, and I'm sitting in today on the intro for Terry Williams. She couldn't be here, but I have my new co-host, Jim Blunt, local Greenville resident, lifelong Greenville resident. Jim, thank you for co-hosting this thing with me today. And as our special guest today, we have Donna Whitley, who is the candidate for mayor for the city of Greenville.
Yes. Hello,
so, Donna,
Michael.
thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We have continued this conversation, Donna, and I'm sure you may have heard some, or if you haven't, you have an opportunity. Make sure you go on YouTube. We have Greenville City elections coming up November 3rd, and you have an opportunity to find out about the candidates that are running as well as the incumbents that are in there. If you want to continue to support them, Donna is our next to last person we're going to have on before early voting starts. Next week, we'll have Mayor Alan Thomas on. We have had every candidate and incumbent that has volunteered so far, except for a couple that wouldn't return my calls, and that's their fault. I tried to reach out to them all the way back starting in July, and couldn't help it. They didn't call me back, but you have plenty of opportunities to listen and go to some of the forums that are out there. This is a big election. One of the things, Donna, we talked about before we go to our break, only 15% of people on average actually support municipal elections and vote. And that's a horrible statistic.
Horrifying.
And you've got to care about what goes on in your city, because what goes on that 7-person bench has a lot to affect your way of life. A lot to affect. We got to thank the sponsors. So thank you so much, Greenville Toyota, for your continued support since we started this show. If you're looking for a new Toyota or Scion or a new used car, go see Craig Gullis and the Greenville Toyota team. You can dial them up at 321-3000. Visit them on the web at greenvilletoyota.com, or go visit them in person across from Fresh Market on Memorial Drive in Greenville. Thank you to Ribeyes Steakhouse. Looking for a fantastic steak and a great atmosphere. You can visit them on the corner of Fire Tower in Arlington as well as in Williamston. They've got a great room called the Angus Room. If you're looking for a great place to have a party, Christmas is coming up. It'll be here before we know it.
Right.
Can't believe how close it is. But make sure you support them and the Overton Group. Real estate professional serving all of Eastern North Carolina, commercial real estate leasing, sales, business brokerage, property management, and residential. So we're going to take our 2-minute commercial break, come back, talk with Donna Whitley about the upcoming election. Be back in 2. Welcome back to the Greenville Grit. I am Michael Overton, and my co-host here to the right of me is a first-timer on the show, Jim Blunt. Thank you, Jim, for coming on and co-hosting this thing with me. We have Donna Whitley on today. We got a lot of municipal stuff going on. We've got an election coming up. Early voting is starting in 2 weeks, and so it's going to be interesting next couple of weeks. I think you're going to continue to see more signs in the ground and hear more and more about it. The Daily Reflector is putting a lot more information and effort and articles really into this voting. So it's going to be fun next month, and then I'm going to be so glad it's over. I'm so glad it's over. But for today, I'm glad you're here, Donna.
Thank you.
So it's very nice. I've heard about you in the past. I know you are a lifelong Greenville resident.
I was born and raised here.
And what I've asked everyone to come on the show, and what I'd ask you to do for the people who are listening, is who is Donna Whitley?
Okay.
How did you get to Greenville? No, you're lifelong.
I was born.
Start from the beginning.
I was born
and then
here.
Tell us why you decided to go into running for this mayor campaign.
All right. I was born here and I was raised here, and I have my funeral plot, my burial plot over there on the Worthington.
So that means you ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
Going nowhere. Exactly. And my husband is a retired fireman, and I raised our 2 children, and they went to public schools and graduated from ECU. So, my roots are deep here, and I love this place. I went away to college and traveled a lot of different places, and in the end, I knew that this was where I wanted to come back and raise my family, and it's been great. Now, I'm running for mayor because economic development and quality of life go hand in hand. They're like 2 sides of a coin. You can't separate them. And that is a new concept that's begun to really get some traction about the last 15 or 20 years. And so I think it's valuable to run for office and have that discussion and let people choose if they think that's a valuable thing to do. I believe that the responsibility of the city council is to build a livable, safe, and healthy city. And so first of all, you've got to attract business and jobs, because both the most important economic development issue and quality of life is having a job so you can take care of your family. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, sir.
Exactly. So how does the city do that? Well, you have to build an infrastructure. And Greenville's been working on that, and we're competitive. You could always do more. But the citizens have come out and supported bonds, and we've been building roads and whatever. Now, what we've discovered in the past 20 years is that when you have two cities of pretty much equal infrastructure, it's quality of life that breaks the tie. Quality of life is the tiebreaker. So, well, I'll give you an example of a personal story. We were talking about at what point did I decide that I wanted to run. Was this summer I was down at Elm Street Little League Park. Did you all ever play?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Little League.
I was at water ski tournaments every single weekend, so there was no summer baseball for Michael. I was in a boat.
Hey, right, at your own personal lake. That's not a bad thing.
I didn't say it was bad. I'm just saying I wasn't in a baseball field.
Well, I was there sitting with some friends of mine, Gray and Nikki, watching their son, with their son, and it was a beautiful day, and I had hopped on my bicycle. I live in Forest Hills, and I grew up in Elmhurst, and I had biked down the sidewalk, which is probably illegal, but anyway, I had biked down the sidewalk, come to Elm Street Park, and was sitting there watching. And I thought, this is really, really sweet. And I was talking to Gray about remembering that his grandfather, Mr. Blunt, and Hoover Taft, Tom Taft's dad, they bought those farms in 1950. You don't know this, but 10th Street and Elm Street, that's where Greenville ended. Mm-hmm. And there was just open road, open farms. They bought those farms, and Mr. Rivers did the first planned neighborhood in Greenville. Now think about this. When you ride down past Elm Street Park next time, you've got 4 lanes of traffic, you've got a median down the middle with your trees, and you have sidewalks on both sides of the street. And then you've got it anchored by the Little League Park. Then you've got churches, you've got schools, the Drew Steele Center, and you've got neighborhoods intertwined. You've got Brook Green, and then you cross the railroad track. You've got Elmhurst with those 10 or 12 acres of land that 50 years now are going to be like springtime all the time. You'll be able to take a deep breath because there's some space there. And then you've got Elmhurst, Forest Hills, Inglewood, and you're continuing the median down the middle, the trees. Now, you've only got sidewalk on one side, okay? But then you hit Greenville Boulevard, and it's like people just lost their minds. It's a gummed up mess, and everybody that I know talks about how to avoid it. And if Earl Trevathan, Dr. Trevathan, were sitting right here with me, he's 92, he would tell you about the night when he was on the city council in 1963 or 64, when that decision to build Greenville Boulevard in such an unsafe and inappropriate way, it's not even good for the businesses because nobody wants to go that way. He told them, don't do this. You need to do more progressive ideas because in 10 or 20 years it'll be a gummed up mess. And he was right, but people have forgotten that. They have forgotten that it's actually an alternative way to develop it so that you could have had sidewalks that went from a residential area to a commercial. You could go in and gotten your groceries or had your hair done or, took your cleaning. But anyway, these are the contrasts there. You say, oh, well, that was a quality of life, but was it an economic engine? I went and found out that one tournament with the Little League from South Carolina generated $250,000 into the economy of Greenville, and very special kind of money because you don't have to provide schools for those people or anything. They just come in, drop their money, and leave. The next week, Georgia Little League came, and it was almost $300,000. So here's a little quality of life amenity, this little neighborhood that's been generating money for years. And I used to go see my cousins.
Well, I want to interrupt and ask you something
yeah.
there. And I'm actually glad you brought that up. We haven't talked about it at all. And Jim, I don't know how involved you were in keeping up with what the bond advisory committee did. I was on that.
Okay.
And one of the things put up, of course, the Daily Reflector got it wrong. I'm going to correct it on the air. They said the bond committee dropped the sports complex. And that's not true. The bond committee passed the sport complex. The city council dropped the sport complex. What is what you're talking about is I completely agree with. You bring in sports teams. They don't live here. The kid who's playing is going to have his mom, his dad, his siblings with him.
Right.
They're coming. They're spending the night. You get hotel tax dollars that come in. You get food tax dollars that come in. And then they leave town.
Right.
And you don't have to provide the services. What are your thoughts on the sports complex?
Oh, I'm all for that kind of thing. I've been in conversation the past few weeks with a wonderful woman. You know, you were talking about when you ran, how you met wonderful people. This is a woman named Betty Jo Ray, who's 85 years old now, but she was the mayor of Rock Hill, South Carolina. And that was her campaign, that we need more recreational things. They have a softball complex. They have a soccer. They have BMX. They have something called Velodome. Do you know what a Velodome is?
No.
It's a bicycle. And they just had an international bicycle competition. And they brought in millions and millions
and Rocky
of dollars.
Mount is bringing in millions of dollars in a city who has really struggled for many years. But we have people staying in Greenville because there are no hotel rooms, not enough hotel rooms to support Rocky Mount.
When they come in for these tournaments.
That's right.
Right.
So is that one of the things as a mayor that you'd like to see pushed back?
I
was pretty upset with some of our city council people, and this was on both sides of the fence there, had zero support for even discussing the sports complex. We're like, guys, you need to look at this and what it can do for our city.
I really think that we should be very aggressive in discussing all these things, and that's very important. I think it's very exciting to be looking at all of these options about how we can grow Greenville and at the same time create a livable, safe, and healthy city. That's really what I think is our responsibility. It's a livable city.
In response to Nash County, it's been so successful. The sports complex, the fields, they're actually proposing an indoor sports arena over there now. My mother-in-law lives in Rocky Mount. I married a girl from Rocky Mount. And they are proposing a second complex, which would be indoor.
Right.
So that would actually have indoor volleyball, basketball. So that's, they've had tremendous success with that. As Michael said, they've got kids coming to Tarboro and Greenville to spend the night here because they can't even find a hotel room over there.
Well, and you are running against Alan Thomas.
Yes,
Alan has been mayor now for
4 years.
Yep, 4 years coming up at the end of this year. I think Alan has been a good voice for the city and out there. What do you see as your biggest difference in him and what you would do versus what he's done?
My difference is that that was the other time I decided to run. It was at that afternoon at the Little League. I thought, I'm going to run because I believe in quality of life. These are some things I want us to talk about. The night that Alan tried to strip out the Greenway money and put it into a separate bond, I felt like that showed he didn't really understand what a powerful economic magnet something is in attracting high-quality business. Even John Day, who's a commercial real estate businessman, he spoke before the city council in favor of greenways because he understands these are some of the things that high-quality businesses are looking for. This is not the old days when people just had to be by the river, and all those things. People have highly educated, highly mobile people working in their company, and these people want to go somewhere they can work and play, and it has to be an interesting place that's full of recreational possibilities, and it has to be so you're not trapped in your neighborhood. I mentioned this to you. I get on my bike. My husband rides the Greenway almost every day. I ride it 3 days a week. Now, once again, I pick it up on Elm Street at Elm Street Park, and we can ride all the way to St. James, all the way to St. Peter's, down to the river, and up into Greenville to have breakfast at Scully's, and then cut back across East Carolina and get home safely. This is sweet living, y'all. I can walk over to East Carolina to a theater production, to a music things, and I had a friend of mine, she said, I feel trapped in my neighborhood. She lives near you, okay? She said, I feel trapped in my neighborhood because if I want to take my kids anywhere to a park, there isn't really a park in my neighborhood. I have to strap them into the car and drive wherever I want to go. If she wants to join me for riding the Greenway, do you know what a life-threatening experience that is to try to get across Greenville Boulevard and eventually get over to...
I'm going to repeat what you said. I do what I can to avoid Greenville Boulevard when possible.
I've got a
Exactly. So I'm just saying these. I want to just say this one statement.
Sure.
All of these things are powerful economic magnets, and I will tell you, this is a new way of thinking. Because you just said to me, "No, I'm never going to." No. These are new ways of thinking, and I want us to be in the forefront of creating a city where really good companies come. Yes, Jim.
Yeah, I've got a question where this has come up and it's been a controversial issue in the past, and I think Greenville has grown up, and I think that they're ready for this idea to be approached. We're talking about down by the river. We have been labeled by some outside economic development consultants as underutilizing our riverfront and the town commons. As mayor, what would you do different on town commons than's there now? I mean, obviously we've got a pier that's going to be brought in and a floating dock boat
There's
ramp.
a river legacy.
And what would you implement on the town commons to create more vibrancy, to attract more people to utilize it? Because right now you can go by there on a beautiful sunny day and there's maybe 10 people on it. And these other towns like Greenville, South Carolina, that have done so much more for the river. What different would you do?
Well, there's so many wonderful ideas in that program, and I don't think that's my job as mayor to say, this is what you, the citizens, should have. They should figure out a mechanism where people can say, this is what we want, and how do most people can utilize it.
But someone still has to lead that discussion, though.
This is true, but isn't that what your planning department is supposed to do when you have a program, to have hearings and let people come and say, this is what we want? I would be the person who would, as the mayor, to say, this needs to be utilized. So what are we going to do? You can't imagine the ideas
that's the
that
same thing I just said. I mean, someone's got to stand forward and say, you've got to do something and start that process. Exactly.
Because
right now, I'm with Jim. I mean, I think it's an incredible asset.
Right.
That
we're
is
not
highly underutilized.
And
but there's so much division between sides. Someone is going to have to say, no, we're going to do something. Now let's come to a consensus about
what we're going to do. And that's what I've spent my whole life doing, is as a citizen of Greenville, bringing people together around a table over projects and saying, okay, how are we going to make this work? I'll give you an example. You don't remember, but there was a time there was no great bus system. There were no buses in Greenville. And I was on that Public Transportation Commission, and it was very difficult, and we were trying to work out our differences. And this is the kind of inspiring leader I want to be. Mayor Cox, who just died, he was 95. He came to the meeting. He said, look, when I graduated from the mechanical training that I got in Washington, D.C., he said, I was so poor, I had nothing but my tools. I didn't have a car, but I had a desire to work. And he said, if it had not been for the bus system, I would not have been able to have a job because I wouldn't have been able to get to work. And that was such an inspiring speech that people were able to say, okay, let's work out our differences and get this bus system going. And now we see that probably at that time we wanted to integrate the buses with ECU. That was definitely an idea whose time had not come. And so now we need to talk about that. How do we expand our transportation system? And talking about leadership, all the time, my observation about history is when people come up with good ideas, and I don't understand why, most of the time people say, we cannot afford that. We just cannot do that. Do you remember when Leo Jenkins said, we're going to have a medical school? Well, of course you don't. You weren't born. But anyway, people just said, this is not possible. This is Eastern North Carolina. We can't afford that. But Leo Jenkins had a vision, and he was able to enroll people. And that's what I want to do, to enroll people. That quality of life is where we need to put our concentration and our vision.
It's not all quality of life what you're talking about there.
But it's economic development.
That is economic development. One thing I have said on the show repeatedly, I'm saying it again today, I hear and I have heard from some of the people on city council, they preach and preach and preach fiscal responsibility. Fiscal responsibility does not always mean pinching your pennies and not spending money. sometimes fiscal responsibility is taking that money that you get
Right.
and investing it smartly so we can get an economic return on our investment.
Exactly.
And not having someone, and whether this is you or Alan or whoever the mayor is or whoever's on city council, people have to be willing to take a risk, and it's sometimes a political risk to put an idea out
Exactly.
there that some people are going to say, just like you just said with the medical school, this will never happen.
Exactly.
We can't afford it. But one man, Leo Jenkins, who's
yes.
always gotten the credit,
Right.
said we are going to do it, and look what we've got because
Exactly.
of it.
And what an
But we
inspiration.
don't have that.
You have me.
Well, we'll have to see. But I am going to say this. We're going to take our second commercial break because, believe it or not, I told you time flies.
Exactly. Time
We're
flies
going to take
when
our
you're
second
having
commercial
fun.
break, come back, and we're going to wrap it up with Donna Whitley with City of Greenville candidate for mayor. Be back in 2.
Thank you.
Well, welcome back to the Greenville Grit. I'm Michael Overton, along with my co-host Jim Blunt. We have Donna Whitley, candidate for City of Greenville mayor. Donna,
Yes,
again,
sir.
thank you so
You're
much for
very
coming on
welcome.
the show.
I've enjoyed it.
Jim, you got a question for her?
Yeah, I know. And Donna and I know each other from being members of the University Neighborhood Association, which is a close-knit group of investment property owners over near East Carolina. And Donna, as mayor, what would you do to make sure that the residents and the students, because that's a big part of Greenville, is those students coming in and living in those houses and apartments and duplexes, to be safe and more safe as they move into that neighborhood for each school year? And that includes the residents too. I'm not excluding them, but what would you do different now to make sure that they're safe?
Each person has to manage their own property, and I would just say it would start with them. I work very hard to evaluate and vet my renters. I had a guy who lived in one of my apartments for 14 and a half years, and I was very happy because when he left, he went to buy his own house. And so I think that might be a record, 14
That's a
and a
good.
half years.
No turnover costs.
No
that's for
turnover
sure.
costs, that's right. And I must say, it was a very fair and reasonable rent. And I like people to stay because I don't like turnover cost. So some of it is on us as property owners to do our best to try to evaluate people who are coming in. And then I am really big into code enforcement. I know that every once in a while I have gotten a letter from the city saying your grass is too tall, and I've gotten myself better organized that doesn't happen. But I think it's important that when people live anywhere, that they know there are rules and regulations for this neighborhood and for this city, and you must adhere to them. And so the students have to take some responsibility, and the city has to take some responsibility for enforcing those codes.
Well, Donna, we have about 3 minutes left before the show ends. I know you want to give a message to the people. Again, do you have a way people can support you or contact you if they have any questions?
Yes. My campaign, I have a website, Donna Whitley for Mayor. And I have
.com or .org?
.com.
Okay.
And then it's my phone number is 252-295-8682. And I need help with putting out signs, for having parties, meet and greets in their neighborhood. And that's fun because you get to meet and talk to people. You get to meet a lot of people. And we're going to do a literature drop. And tell your neighbors that I'm going to be a great mayor, and please vote for me on November the 3rd. Because I am very passionate about our educating ourselves about how quality of life is part of economic development. They really do go hand in hand. They are like a coin with two sides. You can't separate them. And I believe that will make us more competitive for high quality business.
Well, let's talk about high quality business. We do have about a minute and a half left. What can we do as a city? I know we can talk about quality of life all we want, but from the city's perspective, whether it's through regulations or incentives or whatever, to attract higher paying jobs to this town.
Well, this is what I see in terms of the literature, and we were talked about some of the TED Talks about how to make your city more viable. It really is a high quality business with highly trained people are looking for a fabulous place to live. And honest, guys, that really does mean recreational opportunities, cultural opportunities. You need a music, art, theater scene.
But how do you attract those?
By doing it, and we're slowly doing it.
But I mean, if you're going from municipality to municipality, you still got to be able to compete against those. And I'm not disagreeing. All things being equal, they're going to go where the quality of life is. But we're still competing heavily against many other cities. All things aren't necessarily equal.
Well, first of all, we have some advantages in terms of quality of life that we don't have to invest in. We're near the ocean, and we've got this beautiful river that people can kayak and canoe on. We've got great hunting all around us and fishing, and we're not that far from the mountains. But there are some things that we will have to invest in, like sidewalks and parks and trees, and that's what's going to be the economic engine that drives
All right. Well, he just gave me my 30-second notice. So, Donna, again, thank you for coming on. People know how to support you. You can check this out again Friday night, 6:30, or Saturday morning at 9:30 on Cable 7, or just type up YouTube. Look at all the candidates. Get out and vote.
Yes.
November 3rd is the date. Early voting starting, I think, the 23rd of October.
You're right, and sacred privilege.
Till then, we'll see you in next week. Bye.